Hi, hello, this is Dr. Girija Wagh from Pune, Maharashtra, India, and today I'm going to discuss with you about Ashia, a 35-year-old primary gravid patient who had conceived just by preconceptional optimization of weight and regular folic acid prenatal supplements. The pregnancy went on quite well, but towards the end of her pregnancy, after about 32 weeks, she developed gestational diabetes. And then at around 36 weeks of gestation, she developed cholestasis of pregnancy. Now, we took her through a close surveillance. Her diabetes was being monitored by home blood sugar and blood pressure monitoring, and she was well stabilized on metformin. While for her cholestasis, weekly we were doing her bile acids and they remained stable, and therefore we waited for her to go into spontaneous labor, which she was very keen about. Her sonography had really revealed a loop of cord around the neck, but then we decided that that's not a cause of any intervention, and she did go into spontaneous labor at 39 weeks plus 5 days. That time when she came in labor, she was in the latent phase of labor, and after, as she started progressing, we gave her all kinds of intranatal exercises, intrapartum exercises, which is a routine practice in our facility. And then with intermittent monitoring of the baby's fetal heart, we decided to give her any offered her first a pain relief mechanisms, and she chose to take epidural analgesia when she became 3 to 4 centimeters dilated. At that time, we then started her on oxytocin for augmentation because we found that the latent phase was taking a little longer, and we started an epidural analgesia and a continuous fetal monitoring. The labor progressed very well on partogram because partogram is something that we monitor very, very carefully. And as per the partographic monitoring, very, very timely, the patient kept on progressing labor. At around 6 to 7 centimeters dilatation, we found that she had a thinly meconium stained licho, but her electronic fetal monitoring was on, and there were no adverse signs on the EFM, which is perfectly normal, and therefore we continued with some hydration, some ambulation. We continued her progress on labor. At this point in time, she did not require any oxytocin because she had catapulted into a natural course of labor. Labor went on, and then after about this particular event, after about 1.5 to 2 hours, she became fully dilated. When she was fully dilated, naturally on the EFM, we found that there was a little fetal bradycardia, and that's how we diagnosed that she had become fully dilated. We did her internal examination. We found that the cervix had fully dilated, and the presentation was a vertex presentation with an ROA position, and the station was found to be -1. There was no molding, and the labor progress continued. As is the dictum after fully dilated, in the second stage, we usually augment the second stage of labor, wherein we started her on a drip of 5 units oxytocin while she was already being hydrated well, and she was ambulating all this while. She was taking oral liquids, and she was listening to music, and she was extremely happy of what's happening, and she was absolutely well versed with things that were happening around her. We also explained, her husband was in the labor room with her. We explained to both of them that this second stage bradycardia is a perfectly physiological occurrence which happens because of the compression of the head. And if it is up to about 110 beats per minute with normal CTG recording, there's nothing to worry about it. Gradually, her labor progressed, and we explained to them that it's going to take a little longer, she being a primary gravid, because we all know that in a woman who is a primary gravida, it's not only the fact that the baby has to negotiate the bony pelvis, but there also has to be the negotiation of the soft tissues. That's the second stage, the second part of the second stage of labor, where the soft tissues of the vagina and the perineum have to be negotiated by the head with proper pressure coming from the uterus. So likewise, the baby is labor progressed. During the second stage, we continued her regular fetal monitoring patient requested for a desire of getting into a squatting position for a while, which was given. She was given freedom to be on the left lateral position. If she wanted sometimes to be on her own fours, we advised her to do so. And whenever we, of course, strapped the oxytocin drip in such a fashion that it will not mobilize, and she will be able to have various kinds of positions, whatever she felt like. She being under epidural analgesia, of course, she was a little more cooperative, and baby continued to do well. After about 1 hour and 27 to 28 minutes, we found that the head was on the perineum. And as the head continued to be on the perineum, a time came when there was crowning. And we all know that crowning is the time when the head is pushed onto the perineum, but with the relaxation of the uterine contraction, it doesn't recede back. So at that point in time, we gave her a gentle ironing of the vagina, and we encouraged to push her. And this was the time, just little about before this, we had sort of stopped giving her the top up epidural dose so that she will be able to participate in the bearing down efforts. And that likewise, she was very, very cooperative, quite energetic by then, despite there being the fag end of her labor. And she pushed with a proper position, and we found that the baby's head delivered. And it had to be just assisted. We just gave her a episiotomy, which was actually an episiotomy. The decision was taken because the head was crowning and there was a lot of stretch on the perineum, and we contemplated that the baby is going to be of weight because the expected birth weight of the baby, estimated before she went into labor, was about 3.6 kgs. And therefore we decided to give her an episiotomy, gave her a good perineal support, maintained the flexion of the baby's head, and then we assisted the baby's head delivery. With further push, we found that there was a little problem. And the problem was that the head did not undergo a restitution as it should be. And therefore, we decided to immediately take her on the edge of the table, give her an exaggerated position wherein she had a superflexion of her hip joints. And this was done by my two birth attendants who were there, who were our healthcare providers, who kept her, and we kept on encouraging her. And then I gave her a gentle suprapubic pressure onto the shoulder, which was sort of getting impacted. So this was some sort of an shoulder dystocia, a very, very prompt kind of an attention, paying attention to the baby's head movements. We realized that it requires an assistance, and with hyperflexion and a gentle suprapubic pressure, we could deliver the baby safely. The baby cried at birth. The upgar was perfectly normal. We had kept, actually, with the weight of the baby being 3.6, we had kept our checklists in place, both for instrumental delivery. We used the Kiwi's vacuum if it's necessary, or an outlet forceps. Both were kept ready. And additionally, we had also kept all the systems ready for the neonatal resuscitation as well as AMTSL. The baby is now 7 months old, and the mother is absolutely fine. Her diabetes and her cholestasis have all recovered. So that is my story. Thank you.